Shannon, who wins and what is the score for this one?
This, obviously, this is the game that everybody's watching. I mean, I think all the games are going to be really good.
They're all really good.
Yeah, I really think, and even though Kansas City's we're going to talk about that, is a 10-point favorite, I think that game will be a very good ball game.
Agreed.
Also. But I think when Tom went to Tampa and everybody saw that he was going to be playing in the same division as Drew Brees, I think everybody thought they were going to decide not only who won the division, but who advanced to the NFC title game. And we thought this was going to happen. And I don't think, Fox was very disappointed. And plus, they did get Green Bay following it up on Sunday. Skip, the problem that I see for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is that everything that they do well, the Saints are built to kind of take it away.
Agreed.
The Saints do a great job of being able to pressure Tom Brady without having to sacrifice their back end. When you get Hendrickson, and he's going to be the key. He did practice some, and so it's going to be how much he can play. And, you pair Hendrickson with Cam Jordan and Rankins and those guys. DeMario Davis is a very good middle linebacker. And then Malcolm Jenkins did a very good job the first couple of times around dealing with Gronk. But the matchup is Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans. And he's done a great job throughout his career of being able to neutralize Mike Evans. Now, they have Jack Rabbit. The question is, what are they going to do with Jack Rabbit? Are they going to put him on Antonio Brown, or are they going to put him on Chris Godwin?
Yep.
So when I look at it, Tom is not the most mobile quarterback. He'll slide, shuffle here, slide there. But, Skip, he's really not trying to get outside of the pocket. He wants to stay in that phone booth and do all of his business from that location. But when I look at the Saints' defense, they're 4th in rush D, 5th in pass D, 3rd in takeaways, 5th in QB hits.
Yep.
Those are outstanding numbers. And Tom Brady has done a great job over the last couple of weeks. I question the level of defenses that he's done it against, but nevertheless, he's done that. So with that being said, I'm going to take the Saints. I'm going to say the Saints win a very close ball game. I'm going to say they win 27-23. Because also, even though the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have an outstanding pass rush, Skip, the Saints offense is really not built to throw the football down the field. Drew Brees does a great job of getting the ball out of his hands. And he's gotten better. He's still not back to the Drew Brees before that hit, but he's gotten better at getting the ball out of his hands a lot quicker, getting it to his playmaker. I think can't guard Mike being back. Alvin Kamara has been sensational. He's been phenomenal. Emmanuel Sanders, and so I like what the Saints possess. I like what they can do offensively, and I like how they can neutralize some of the pass rush from the Tampa Bay defense. So I'm gonna go with the Saints. I'm gonna say they win a very, very close ball game, 27-23.
I disagree with nothing you just said. The Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe just delivered brilliant insight into the hottest matchup, the most intriguing matchup of 4 really great ones.
Right.
Tom Brady is facing, to me, the greatest challenge of his entire NFL career. This is his nightmare matchup. I don't like anything about it for Tom Brady. I especially don't like what I saw on opening day and on the night of November 8th at Tampa Bay, both the New Orleans games, in which you walked away saying, that's just a mismatch for Tom Brady. He's got no shot. And to drive home just how bad this was on the night of November 8th for Tom Brady, the final score was 38-3 New Orleans, but it was never even competitive.
Right. It felt like 50-3.
It did. Here are the final yardage totals. New Orleans had 420 yards to Brady's 194, his offense 194. 420 to 194, so you more than doubled their yards. 27 first downs for New Orleans, the visiting team, to 13 for the home team. And guess what the time of possession was? 40-20.
Right.
So Brady didn't really have the ball that much, and Drew Brees and company just dominated the football.
Well, Skip, if you remember, if I'm not mistaken, they might have went their first 3 or 4 possessions 3 and out. So you go 3 and out, and then Drew Brees goes 10 plays, 12 plays, 14 plays. They eating up time, and you're not on the field but for a minute or 2 at a time.
To drive this home, on that night of November 8th, in Brady's new home, Drew Brees had a QBR scale 0 to 100 of 99, while Tom Brady had a six, a single-digit
Was that
six.
the greatest discrepancy in QBR in history?
In history, and I believe it was Tom Brady's worst game in his long and goatish history. Would you believe, to add insult to injury, that both Jameis and Taysom Hill, in the time they played in that game, had QBRs of 100, so they were perfect, on top of Drew Brees' 99,
right,
compared to Tom Brady's 6. And just to drive home how bad it got, could we please see that last interception that Brady threw? It was 38-0 at this point, and Tom Brady just gave it out. He just spit the bit, rolled out, and threw the worst decision pass that I think he's ever tried to throw. Just threw it up for grabs across the field. Is that like the worst idea for a throw you could do? He's trying to throw it up for Gronk and hope he jump balled it. And Malcolm Jenkins said, "Oh, thank you, Tom. I'll take that."
Yeah. Although, Skip, you believe he still has a lively arm. His arm has never been that lively where he could do that.
Okay. So that's when you hit bottom. It was also the first night that they tried to throw Antonio Brown into the mix, into the rotation, after he had practiced twice with the football team. And just to sum this up in the big picture, I think people have lost sight of this. You realize that Drew Brees has basically owned Tom Brady in their head-to-heads.
Yeah.
It's Drew Brees 5 to Tom 2. 5-2 is the score when they've played each other 7 times.
Yeah, I think Tannehill has a winning record against him also. But it's not very many quarterbacks, Skip, can say I own a winning record against that guy.
But you not only do you own the winning record, you want touchdowns, interceptions in those 7 games head-to-head. Drew Brees is 18 touchdowns to 1 interception against Tom Brady. Tom Brady versus Drew Brees is 9 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. Obviously, Drew's not playing defense, and he has had a very good defense to back him up.
Right.
But still, 18-1 versus 9-11?
Yeah.
I think people have lost sight of just how lopsided this quote-unquote competition between the two old guys has been over time. Okay. So, where does that leave me? If Tom Brady could turn this around and win this game, I believe it would be the greatest beat-down turnaround I've ever seen. You might be able to find a bigger one, but to go from getting blown out at home, 38-3, to somehow pulling off a win at New Orleans in a playoff game against Drew Brees, who has owned you, wouldn't that be the greatest beat-down turnaround ever? Right?
Yeah, but Skip, you know what? Football is different than any other sport because they're like, and I think this is why they say this in basketball, Skip. A team can be 3-0 against you in basketball or whatever. But in football, Skip, one bad bounce, one off-target throw, and one miss, and it's over. It's only one game. And we know what Tom is capable of doing because in 21 years, we've seen more ups than downs. We've seen more good than bad. It's not like, I'm like, if Tom were to beat them, I'm picking the Saints, no question. I feel very comfortable in my pick. But it's not like, man, if the Bucs win this game, it's not like, Skip, I'm going to be like, man, I can't believe this. Man, I cannot believe that this team beat the Saints. It's not going to be one of those because when you look at them offensively, they have the firepower. Defensively, they have the firepower to get after Drew Brees. The question is, can they get to Drew Brees, Skip? I'm afraid that Drew take a hit, Skip. I mean, I still don't believe those ribs are 100% healthy.
Okay.
And you definitely don't want to take no. I don't think he's been hit since he's been back.
Okay. So now it's time for my prediction. What one expression do I hang my hat on this show? There's one man in all of sports I do not bet against, and it is the flat-out undisputed GOAT in the National Football League. It is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr.
Well, I want a case on all them names.
Okay? So I'm going way, way, way out to the very end of the limb, and I'm going to say Brady pulls this off. I can't even tell you how he pulls it off. I just say he will pull this off because he's had this much time since November 8th to reflect, to dissect, to figure out how to beat the Saints. I think it's going to be a little higher scoring than you do. I think Brady's going to have to get into the 30s to win this game because I do not trust his defense. I trust Brady's offense in this game far more than I do Todd Bowles' defense. As I always tell you, I love Todd Bowles as a coordinator far more than I love his defense that he is coordinating right now. I'm going to go all the way up to 31-30, Brady over Brees. 31-30 on some wild finish. It's going to take a GOAT finish by Tom Brady.
So you believe he throws the game-winning touchdown, leaves a game-winning touchdown drive,
I'll go
or he puts it in field goal?
Field goal drive by Ryan Suckup. That's what I'm going to come down to, and he's going to hit Gronk with a couple of big passes in that drive, just the way he did against the Rams when he finally figured them out in the Super Bowl. And here's what I'm also hanging my hat on. When we last saw Drew Brees last year in a playoff game at home, he lost to Kirk Cousins. You remember that game?
He did.
It was overtime, 26-20, and Drew did not play well in that game by his standards. And he had a lost fumble and an interception, and Cousins outplayed him.
Yeah.
Cousins had a QBR of 79 to Drew's 49. And it was pretty shocking that Minnesota got after them and held Kamara to 21 yards and Latavius to 21 yards rushing. They each had 21 yards. Okay, so that's the formula for how to do it. But it took overtime, but it was 26-20. It took a push off by Rudolph in the end zone. Remember, it was highly controversial. I wouldn't have called it, but whatever. You could say that they got robbed again at home. Okay, now we go back to in Brees' last 4 home playoff games. The truth is, he hasn't played great in any of them.
Well, Skip, he didn't play well the first half of the Minnesota game. Remember, they ended up being the Minnesota Miracle. He came back in the second half. But they were down by like what? They were down by like 20 points at one point in that game.
That was at
Minnesota.
But I'm just looking at 4 home games because this one is home. And his average QBR for those 4 games, just to sum it up, is a 57, scale 0 to 100. Trust me, that by his standards, that's not good.
Well, Skip, let me tell you what happens, is that a lot of times when you have home playoff games, you get so caught up, the crowd's going to be able to bail us out. And you forget that you still have to play games. And teams go in there and say, look, if we can just get this crowd, get them out of it early. So keep them at bay. So in other words, they don't allow Saints to run off with a 21-3 or a 28-10 lead, and the crowd stays in a frenzy the entire ball game. For the most part, they've been trailing the entire game, or the game has been kind of nip and tuck, and that's what the Rams did, Skip. The Rams kept them at bay. Drew threw a horrible interception.
He did.
They kept him at bay, Drew got the ball in overtime, didn't do anything with it. They get the ball, end up kicking a field goal, and boom, there you go.
And then go back to the home playoff game before that one, and it was the Nick Foles, remember, Eagles game at New Orleans. And I thought Nick Foles was going to pull off his magic act again, and he hit Alshon right in the hands, and it went right through his hands for a late interception that stopped what could have been a game-winning drive. Okay, so got that going. Then you mentioned fans. Obviously, fans are not much of a factor anymore, right?
Not 3,000.
Okay. And yet, this Tampa team is weird to me. I don't know why. They haven't played well at home, but they played much better to me away. So I sort of like the fact it's at New Orleans without many fans because I think they have a better chance there, weirdly, than they would have at home.
Well, New Orleans should have put in a request and asked the NFL, could they play this game at Jerry World? Because Jerry World, you get 40,000 fans in this game.
And second to Jerry World has been Tampa Bay, where I don't know exactly how many it's been, but it looks like it's got some people there.
They do get some people in there.
It doesn't seem to work to inspire the Buccaneers.
Well, Skip, the thing is also, if you look at that game in which you're talking about, the 38-3 ball game in which the Saints beat the Bucs, they hit Tom Brady more than anybody else hit him this year.
It was the worst he's been roughed up all year.
They hit him 9 times.
I got it.
And it started from the very first snap. And that's what you're going to have to do, Skip. Look, you cannot let this man get comfortable. Because the more comfortable he gets, the more uncomfortable he'll make you. And so it's going to be imperative that Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator for the Saints, have the game of his life because he knows what Tom Brady represents. Tom Brady lived for this moment. He's made his name. The regular season, we know what his regular season is. But Tom Brady, legends are made in the playoffs. And he's had more big playoff moments than any other quarterback in the history of the game. So Dennis Allen is well aware of what Tom Brady represents. They are.
Okay, so the Saints pass rush comes from everywhere because it's deep and it's talented. They don't have one guy who's Khalil Mack or Aaron Donald, even though Cam Jordan sometimes plays like he's Aaron Donald or Khalil. But if you look down the list, they just have a bunch of guys. Even Demario Davis comes as a blitzer. And yet, what guy do you keep singling out?
Hendrickson's bad.
Hendrickson, and he's got a neck injury. He practiced limited this week.
Right.
Couldn't play last week. So I'm having to, I'll knock on wood for him because I hate to even talk about injuries, especially when it involves a man's neck.
Right.
But he might not quite be himself in this game, and they're going to need him to not quite be himself.
Right, because he's going to need to be himself. Like I said, he didn't play, and he's been limited since the game against, I think he got hurt in Kansas City's game, and he's kind of been limited in and out of the lineup since then.
Okay.
But he's going to have to be on his best behavior.
Offsetting that is Brady lost his offensive guard, Alex Kappa, who's okay. He's not great, but he lost him in the game at Washington. I think he fractured his ankle, but he's not going to play. They're going to start a kid named Aaron Stinney at guard who has never started an NFL game. He's highly regarded, but he's never played. Well, is that going to be a weak link? Because what does Brady need to do? He needs to step into his throws.
Really, the best protection you need for Brady, you need a center and your two guards.
Okay.
Because he's looking to step up.
Okay. Now, I'm going to also hang my hat on this one stat that I saw on your favorite website, Pro Football Focus, my Bible. What did I see this week that knocked me out of my chair and probably sent you about to leap out your window?
What happened?
This is ranking secondaries in the National Football League. And I'm thinking, New Orleans secondary, it's loaded, man, with experience and talent, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, they're going to be, what, top 5? And I'm looking, and I get down to number 6. And Tampa Bay secondary is 6th in the league. And I'm thinking, it can't be. It's so torturable.
Thank you.
Okay? And then I keep going down. I have to go to 21. New Orleans secondary is ranked 21st in productivity. Why is that? First line of the explanation: penalties killed New Orleans secondary rankings. The group committed 45 penalties in the regular season, 6 more than any other unit in the NFL. 9 came courtesy of Marshawn Lattimore, who earned a 53.7 coverage grade, which is still good, but meaning he did have decent ball production, but he had 9 pass breakups, but he also gave up more touchdowns than any cornerback in single coverage all year, 6. So he can be a weak link on pass interference, or if you want to call it cluing, jumping routes, beat deep.
You know what it is, Skip? I think sometimes that he plays down to the level of competition, because we watched him give up a touchdown to Alshon, and I'm like, Marshawn, really?
Yep.
You know Alshon can't beat you deep, but you're playing on top of it.
I agree.
You know all he is a 50-50 and a back shoulder fade guy.
Yep.
So why are you on top of him?
Okay.
But there's something about Mike Evans that brings something out of him.
Does it?
And it happens sometimes, Skip. It's sometimes you go against the guy, and you know that he has the potential to embarrass you.
Yep.
You're on your best behavior, where you play down like, oh, man, that guy can't do anything.
So watch Tom Brady go deep to Mike Evans, I don't know, 3 or 4 times with those sort of lob deep balls, those arcs, those rainbows, just to see if Mike Evans at 6 feet 5 inches tall can get a pass interference or maybe snag one above Marshawn Lattimore, who will be in single coverage, I'm going to guess, the whole game on Mike Evans,
A lot of the game, yes.
And then what did I tell you all the way back to last Monday? My X factor for this game is the new guy, Antonio Brown. He can be a force on and off the football field, and he's becoming a force on the field because, as Bruce Arians said this week, he's finally in game shape. He's also in Brady shape because they're starting to click and connect on a wavelength that they did not have starting in that first game on that fateful night of November 8th when they got beat down and annihilated and humiliated at home. But since then, it started to get better and better and better. I still say he'll be your nightmare matchup because I don't know how you do you put Jackrabbit on him in single? He's going to hurt somebody during this game because Brady loves him, and Brady will also feature him. So if you don't, you have to acknowledge and honor Chris Godwin because remember last year he was Pro Football Focus's #1 ranked receiver.
Right.
Okay, so I still say Antonio will hurt you at some point. So I like Brady's weapons. His protection has been virtually flawless. I loved what they did at Washington because I thought that rush would get after him, but they did a nice job on those guys.
Well, the secondary, Washington secondary left a lot to be desired. The only thing that concerns me, Skip, is that when I watch the Saints corners, they do a lot of what we call opening the door. They'll be in press coverage and they just turn and try to run with the guy. I'm a firm believer, Skip, if you're up in press coverage, put your hands on the guy. Because as my granny used to say, boy, open the door, flies come in your house. When you open that gate like that and give those receivers free release, you're at their mercy. Fade, back shoulder fade, stops, out routes. So I would rather than see now, Marshawn is really more of a guy that's going to put his hands on you, especially Mike Evans, because Mike Evans is a big target. Skip 6'5", at 225, 230, that's a big target for So he's not a small Antonio Brownish, returner type guy. Or Tyreek Hill, returner type guy that's slippery. That's not what Mike Evans is. Mike Evans is a big physical receiver that likes to jump ball, and he can get deep on you. So he's kind of tailor-made to because Marshall's a little small, but he gives him a big target to get his hands on. So it's going to be interesting to see. This is basically, it's going to come down to which team can handle the other team's pressure. Because the team that can't handle the pressure, that's the team that is going to succumb. And so New Orleans, Dennis Allen, what type of game plan are you going to call? Don't come. I mean, you can do some of the same things you did the last couple of games, but Tom is expecting that. They're going to have an answer for that. Look for the backs to catch a lot more passes, Skip, because that's always there.
So, in the end, I will bet you no cases of Diet Dew on this because I don't love it. The only thing I love about this game, for me, is Tom Brady. Period. End of story. He's 18 months older than Drew Brees, and at 43, I still believe in him and his ability to outthink New Orleans. He's going to have to do it with mind more than body.
Right.
And I'm going to bet on him with all my pride, 31-30.
Okay.
All right? And I think you're a little afraid of him. That's what I'm hearing.
No, Skip.
Because I thought you would pick it like 40-20.
No, because I understand what the playoffs represent. The playoffs
I think
represent.
you understand what Tom Brady represents.
It's just Tom Brady. It's the playoffs. One game. It's like Go James. For one game, give me Go James.
Here we go.
Ooh, here we go. I love that we're getting these predictions
Monday is my day.
Monday.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.